shotgun down and goes to the rifle. She gets hit with the rifle as well. Jessica Gawi, our would-be reporter. I don't have a picture to show of her right now because she gets taken out of the theater. And that's one you should only have to see once. But she doesn't make it. John Larimer, our Navy sailor, he's shot and killed by that rifle. Bullet rips through all of his organs, comes out of his body, enters his arm, and breaks his radial bone in his arm. His friends from the Navy that are there, they try to pull him out of the theater, but they can't do it because he's dead. And so they pull him as far as they can, and he ends up being propped up at the bottom of the stairs before they have to leave him. Michaela Medic, the 24-year-old subway worker who graduated high school early and found those much better seats up towards the top of the theater, she too takes a blast to the head, and she dies in that theater. He says to Dr. Metzner, "I shot at people trying to get away. I shot at people trying to flee the theater, to try to go out the exits, to make sure that others wouldn't follow." Angiat Mora and his wife and 17-year-old son were there, and he shot each of them as they tried to flee from that theater. But they lived, and you'll get to hear from them. Rita Pauline is his wife, and his son is Prodeo. Farah Sudani, the Red Robin worker, remember? She gets shot and is eviscerated. Her organs pour out of her, and she needs to have help holding them in as first responders come and take her away. The back of her leg is also shot. It's missing a huge chunk of it now, and you'll see that. Alex Sullivan, Sully, there for his birthday. Big man, one round, goes right into his heart, and he dies right there. Alexander Teves, Tom and Karen's son, hoping to get married to Amanda with him. He's shot in the head, a horrible wound, and he dies in that theater too. Jonathan Blunk, our would-be sailor, our would-be member of the SEALs, also died in that theater from gunshot wounds that ripped through his head and his body. Jonathan was there with his friend, and he had draped himself over her, and the bullets that killed him came from behind. One through the back left of his skull, perforating his brain. The other through his lower left back, perforating most of his major organs. Matt McQuinn, who had gotten a seat pretty close to the front of the portion where the railing is, but not at the front of the theater. He's shot more times than almost anybody else. His legs are shot multiple times. He's shot multiple times throughout his body. And just falls in this horrible way and dies right there. Caleb Medley. Caleb Medley, our aspiring comedian. Caleb Medley is shot in the face, and he loses his eye, and there's blood pouring out of his head. And his 9-month pregnant wife thinks he's dying. She takes a cup of water, and she pours it on his face during a lull in the fighting to try to help him. When the first responders get there, they grab her and say, "We gotta go, we gotta go." She thinks he's dead or dying. She kisses him on the head, and she says, "I will raise our son." She ends up going to the hospital to deliver the baby that day, and 2 floors above her, he's having life-saving brain surgery. You'll see Caleb tomorrow. Aiden Avila Arredondo came to the theater with, I believe, a wife and other members of his church. His wife was the one that left those flip-flops by the AR-15 you saw at the door. He got shot in the leg. He didn't just lose the flip-flop. They would end up having to take the foot as well. But then our third providential act, that assault rifle jams. 65 rounds into a 100-round drum, it jams. And you can see the drum on the right. And he can't fix it. It is chaos around him, death, people fleeing, and he walks to go down the hallway in the theater to find the light so that he can work on the jam, but he can't. So he drops the 100-round magazine and he tries to use one of his 40-round magazines, but he still can't clear the jam. So he dumps the AR-15 outside, having left unfired 218 additional rounds that he'd brought. Dumps these magazines right here. He then goes to his handgun and he fires off 5 rounds with that 40 caliber Glock, just at people. That's what the FBI did for theater number 9. They tried to match the trajectory of all the shots that that guy fired out of the corner of that theater, moving up and around. This is a view from the front and where some of those rounds struck. But they didn't just go through seats, they went through walls. And as he shot at people, and I should tell you this because I forgot to, he takes one of those tear gas canisters when he first comes in and wings it at this exit over in that area. He doesn't have the second one to close off the other exit. But people try to go, and he shoots, and it goes through the walls, and it goes into theater number 8. And you will hear from people who were shot in the face and in their body from bullets that went through theater 9 into theater number 8. Here's the rods that are their trajectories. And he went to this gun right here. That fourth providential act, and the one I can't do it justice standing here with the few minutes I have left, are heroes. The men and women of the Arvada Police Department and the Aurora Fire Department and the first responders who came and saved lives, who came and held Farah Soudani together until she could get to the hospital, who drove people around over curbs and yards and rocks to rush them from places that ambulances and fire trucks could not get. And they saved lives, keeping this body count relatively low. And you'll hear from them. Remember Ashley Mosier? She's there with her 6-year-old daughter, her boyfriend, the 2 13-year-olds. When the shooting starts, she reaches for her daughter, tries to force her to the ground, but she collapses because she's been shot and paralyzed, and she miscarries that baby. And little 6-year-old Veronica Mosier, that guy shot her 4 times. 4 times. I'm not going to show you those pictures either because you should only have to see those ones. Police try to get her out of that theater and save her life, but they can't. When we're done getting all of these horrific details, and we've heard all there is to hear, I'm going to come back and stand in front of you right here. And I'm going to ask you to reject that guy's claim that he didn't know right from wrong, that he didn't have the ability to form the intent to act or plan or deliberate or premeditate. And I'm going to come right here and ask you to hold him accountable for murdering 12 people and trying to murder 70 others. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breckler. Members of the jury, let's take a break. Before we do, I want to remind you that all of the admonishments that I have given you multiple times apply during each and every break. You may be tempted to want to talk during the break about the proceedings. you have to resist the temptation to do that. You cannot talk about the case. Talk about other things. You cannot talk about the case or about anything happening in these proceedings. Is everybody clear on that? And everybody's nodding their head yes. The other thing that I mentioned before, which I'll repeat again, is that you're not allowed to start forming opinions about the case. Remember, you have to keep an open mind throughout the case. And remember also what I've said before, that Mr. Holmes is presumed innocent, and that presumption of innocence remains with him and has to be given effect by the jury throughout the trial. All right, with those advisements in mind, and the other ones that I gave you before, which I'm not going to repeat again, but are equally important, let's take a 20-minute break at this time, okay? The record should reflect that the jurors have exited the courtroom. Let's take a 20-minute break, folks. The court will be in recess. Thank you.